Monster Itch Ghost Attack by David Lubar. Chapter 8. We need a topographical map, Sarah said. What's that? I asked. It shows elevation, she said. You know how high or low stuff is, so we'll see cliffs and valleys. I'm sure Joshua Thistle had some sort of accident. We'll look for a cliff or deep pit where a person wandering in a storm could have fallen. We'll find the cliff first and then look for the cave. I'll bet they'd have one of those maps at the Historical Society, I said. And I'll bet Mr. Holworth would be happy for another visit, Sarah said. So we grabbed our bikes and pedaled back to town. When we asked about maps, Mr. Holworth was so excited you'd have thought we'd asked to see pictures of his dog. I love maps, he said after he brought an enormous book over to our table and flipped it open to the page that covered Thistle's Falls. Me too, Sarah said. I think I want to be a cartographer when I grow up. She explained to me how to read the map. It was pretty simple. The lines on it showed everything that was the same height. There'd be a new line for every 10 or 50 or 100 feet, depending on the scale of the map. The closer the lines, the steeper the drop. We looked all over my grandparents' property, but didn't see any cliffs. I scratched my arms, even though they didn't itch. I guess I was getting ready for my next encounter with the ghost. I got up and walked over to a display case with items from the bank robbery. There was an old book there, open to a page of handwritten numbers. I read the description on the card next to it. Replica of a typical bank ledger of the sort that was stolen by Joshua Thistle. The one he took was never recovered. For this reason, nobody knows exactly how much money was stolen, and nobody can explain why he took the ledger. Sarah! I waved her over and pointed at the display. What if the ghost's unfinished clue wasn't ledge? What if it was ledger? Then it's not about the ledge of a cave, she said. It's about a ledger book hidden in a cave. That's great, I said. But it doesn't narrow things down, she said. Even if we know there's a ledger in a cave, the cave could still be anywhere. Unless you're right about the accident, I said. And you have to be. Otherwise, we have no idea what to do. I went back to take another look at the map, even though we hadn't found any cliffs on the farm. Maybe Joshua Thistle had run into some other kind of danger as he fled from the bank. Mr. Holworth came to the table and looked over our shoulders. What are you trying to find? He asked. Our grandparents bought a house just outside of town, I said. We're looking at the property. The Higgins farm? He asked. I heard that had been sold. I guess, Sarah said. She pointed to a spot on the map. The house is here. Yep, that's the Higgins property. Used to be a lot larger, but they sold a big parcel of the land way back in the 1950s. Before then, the property went all the way to here. He tapped a spot on the map much farther out than the hills. Way back, one of the Higgins was pals with Joshua Thistle. Sarah's mouth opened like she was about to say something. I could tell she was excited. I could also tell she didn't want to talk to me until Mr. Holworth left. Luckily, the mail carrier came in just then with a package. As soon as Mr. Holworth walked over to the desk, Sarah jabbed a spot on the map with her finger. Here, she whispered. Look at the drop. It's super steep. See how it's right in line with where the road out of town curves? And it's on the path you'd take from the bank to the farm. I looked where she pointed. There was definitely a cliff. If someone had left town in a bad storm and didn't follow the curve of the road, they'd end up right at that cliff. Let's go, Sarah said. That's where we'll search. Wait, I said. I pictured both of us falling off a cliff. If he fell, there's nothing for us to find at the top. Let's go around to the bottom. That will be safer. And that's where we need to search for a cave. Sarah patted my arm. I guess once in a while you come up with a good idea. We used the map to figure out the best way there. We had to leave our bikes by the side of the road and then walk into the woods. But the cliff was easy to spot. When we reached the bottom, I crammed my neck back to look at the top. It was about 30 feet above us. This should be more like finding a football in a haystack, I said. Or maybe just finding a haystack, Sarah said. We started searching, walking slowly, kicking up leaves when they looked like they'd covered something. Sarah spotted it. There, she said, pointing to the base of the cliff right next to us. I think it's some sort of cave. I knelt and looked inside. The opening was only about 2 feet wide and 3 feet tall. It was hard to see anything in the dark space beyond it. I don't know if we should go in there. He probably didn't go far, Sarah said. He had no reason to. She knelt next to me and reached in. I was tempted to yell, "Boo!" but I think we were past the point of playing tricks on each other. Instead, I said, "Be careful, there could be something sharp." "Or something flat and smooth," Sarah said. She pulled her hand out, holding an object wrapped in a dirty rag. "What is it?" I asked. "It feels like a book," she said. "I think this is oilcloth. That's what they wrapped stuff in back in the old days to keep out water." Sarah peeled away the cloth. She was right. There was a book inside. It was the size of my school notebooks, with the cover made of leather. Small, neat letters stamped in front read, "Thistles Falls Savings Bank." She flipped the cover open and thumbed through the pages. They were filled with entries showing deposits and withdrawals. That has to be the ledger. I felt a tingle of excitement run through my body. I also felt there'd be more in the book than a bunch of numbers. Joshua Thistle had mentioned the ledger for a reason. Look for the last page with writing. Sarah started turning pages from the back. "I found it," she said. She pointed to the top of the page. At a date written in the upper left corner, July 17th. That's yesterday, the day they reenacted the robbery. What did he write? Sarah read the first sentence out loud. "I fear this will be my last entry, for I have suffered a terrible injury in my attempt to safeguard the town's money from a fierce band of ruthless robbers." Joshua Thistle's desperate words, even when read by my cousin, turned my shiver into a tremble, and my tremble grew into a shake that rattled my teeth, but I needed to hear the rest. "Keep reading," I said.